All right, Jane, we're good to go.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Planning and Highways Committee on the 6th of October. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Abby for some welcome and housekeeping arrangements.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for logging on to this Zoom video conference of Planning Committee. I'm Abby Brownsall, the Democratic Services Officer for this meeting, and I'm assisted by my colleague, Jay Bell, who is host of the virtual meeting. We'll proceed to introductions and housekeeping in a moment, but just a couple of points. This is a public meeting, and in alignment with the new regulations which permit meetings to be held by remote means, will be live streamed for the public to view. To make the meeting run as smoothly as possible, can I please ask that participants in the virtual meeting room leave your microphone on mute when you are not speaking. When you want to speak, please raise your hand to the camera, only unmute when the chair indicates you can speak. Public speakers are permitted, and the meeting host will bring speakers into the virtual meeting room at the appropriate time. Once you have spoken for the allotted time, the host will then return you to the virtual public gallery. Members should all have received and have access to the agenda, officer presentation and the supplementary report. If you have not, please can you indicate so during the members' introductions. Can everyone ensure that all mobile phones and similar devices are switched to silent? If at any time any member loses the ability to hear or be heard, they must alert the chair or host as soon as possible. Members have key worker status, which has enabled them to carry out a site visit if required. You may see members looking to the left and right of their screens. This is because they may be looking at an additional screen or device containing agenda papers, not because they are distracted. As members and officers are mainly working from their own homes, you may hear distant sounds of children, pets or household noises from other rooms. At the end of each item, a vote will be taken by the committee and the applicant will receive a decision notice in the usual manner. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go to introductions. I'm Councillor Jane Dunn and I'm one of the co-chairs who will be chairing today's meeting. Chris?
Councillor Chris Rosling-Josephs, member for the Bayton ward.
Alan?
Alan Law, Firth Park.
Diane?
Good afternoon, Chair. My name's Diane Hurst. I'm an elected member for Richmond ward.
Thank you. Roger?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Roger Davison from Ecclesall ward.
Lovely. Zahira? You're on mute, Zahira. Can't hear you.
You're right now.
That's okay. Sit.
Hello.
Let's try again.
That's it. Okay now.
Zahira, can you?
I can hear you.
Oh, you're very, very faint, but we can hear you. So
Okay,
just
so
that's fine. Yeah.
Zahira Naz, councillor in the Darnell ward.
Lovely. Thank you, Zahira. Peter Price.
Councillor Peter Price, member for Shire Green Brightside.
Peter Garbett.
Councillor Peter Garbett, member for Nether Edge and Sharrow.
Bob.
Councillor Bob McCann, councillor for Bayton ward.
Tony. You're muted, Tony.
Yeah. Tony Downs, councillor for Southey ward.
Adam. On
Adam,
mute.
yeah, Adam Hurst, councillor for West Ecclesfield ward.
Lovely. And Jack.
Good afternoon, Councillor Jack Clarkson.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I'll hand back to you, Abby. Any apologies for... Oh, sorry, Andrew. Oh, I missed you out, Andrew. How can I have forgotten you?
Very easy. Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Sanger, councillor for Forward ward.
I do my worst. Lovely. Apologies for absence, Abby. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. We have one apology from Councillor Peter Rippon and Councillor Adam Hurst is substituting today. Thank you.
Lovely. Exclusions of the press and public. Is there anything that needs? No. Okay.
No, Chair, no.
No. Okay. Declarations of interest. Anyone, if you could indicate. I have Councillor Hurst who wishes to. Councillor Hurst.
Yeah, I think it's item 7C on the agenda. It's the concerning the dwelling house, the demolition of the dwelling house and rebuilding on the corner of I've forgotten the lane and Wortley Road. It is
It's
actually
okay.
my,
Item 7C.
it is in my ward. I haven't actually had any involvement with this at all. Nobody's approached me with it, so I'm just saying it's in my ward, but I intend to stay in the meeting if that's acceptable and take
Fine.
full
I
part.
think that's absolutely fine. Victoria, is that okay? Yeah. Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, it's item 7B. I believe reading the text is a mention of Donovan Properties. If it's who I think it is, it's an acquaintance of mine, but I haven't seen him for over 12 months. I've had no dealings with this whatsoever, but just for record.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's fine. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go on to the minutes of the previous meeting. We have two committees to catch up on. Okay, the first one is the 25th of, the head committee that was held on the 25th of August. And this starts on page 13, if I'm correct. Okay, so we'll go through them. Page 14, 15, page 16, 17, 18 and 19. So we can take those as an accurate representation of the meeting. Okay, we'll go on to the minutes of, okay, the 15th of, I think they were all in the same ones, weren't they? They were all put together. Yeah, it's a bit hard on that, yeah. Okay, so we're okay with the minutes for the 25th of August and the 15th of September. Has been an accurate representation of the meetings. Okay, that's fine, that's brilliant. Lovely. Okay, we'll go on to the main body of the agenda now, which is, item 6, first of all, sorry. It was the site visit. Yes, well, there was a site visit. And just to explain to members of the press and public that due to COVID restrictions, some members make their own way there and go in their own time. Okay, but the site visit was held. Okay, item 7 is the main part of the agenda. And the first application we have is item 7A, which is application number 2/01895/RG3, formerly planning application 08691394. The proposal is erection of office building BLA with auxiliary retail cafe bar space A1, A2, A3, A4, A5 and associated works. The location is the land bound by Carver Street, Wellington Street and Backfields, Block H2, Sheffield, S14, FT. And the officer presenting on this is Lucy Bond. Lucy, if you could go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. This is the next phase of the Heart of the City scheme. So obviously you dealt with an application at the last committee. It follows on from that particular one. If I just scroll down the presentation, so the red line boundary is the scheme that we're dealing with today, and adjacent is H3, which you dealt with last time. That's known as Block H3 as part of the master plan. Again, there's an aerial photograph here which shows the site, and it also I've tried to illustrate. It's a bit out of date actually, this, because I noticed that HSBC offices are not on there, but it does show you the different Block A, Block B, Block C, Block D. So it shows you the site in context. So obviously this is the next phase in the jigsaw for this particular site, and the proposal is for an 8 to 9 story block with retail units at ground floor, with offices above. And obviously there are significant public realm works, which I've tried to display on this illustration here. At the bottom end of Carver Street is the main area. And then towards the bottom, this area here will link into the already newly created Charter Square next to HSBC. So it's part of that jigsaw. What it does do is take backfields out of the site now, so backfields would be remodelled. You can see that illustrated at the top of the site, to the north of the site there. So that's another intervention that's proposed as part of this next piece of the jigsaw. I'll just scroll down to the images of the scheme. This is an image as you would see from Carver Street. So it's a street image. It's not coming out brilliantly on screen, but you can see St Matthew's Church spire here, for example. And then the bottom one is what you would see from Wellington Street. It is a bold and modern design, Chair. It would be constructed of smooth and perforated dark metal cladding, and obviously there would be substantial glazing. You can see the large areas of glazing and double height glazing on the ground floor, and this is where the retail units would be, on the ground floor with the offices above. And really what we're saying is that this marks, it is quite substantial, but it marks the kind of change in civic scale from the conservation area, which is to the east of the site. This is outside the conservation area, but it relates more clearly to the larger buildings as you come away from that conservation area, including Telephone House, which is very close to the site. So these are just some illustrations. I'll just go back up to the main plan here, so you can see that relationship. The conservation area runs to the east of the site and to the north of the site. So these areas are not, the site itself is not within the conservation area, and neither are these sites here. And Chair, Historic England have agreed with us that this is the right approach for this site, and it's a bold transition between the conservation area and the rest of the city centre. So I'll just run again back down to that image there that shows it in context. And obviously this is St Matthew's Church, that's a listed building, and you can see that the spire clearly is much taller than the building itself, so it still would retain its presence on the street there. So Chair, I think this is the most the image that you would see from the conservation area. So you can see that bold transition, but we and Historic England are comfortable that, as I say, this is the right approach for this site, and it is a well detailed and designed building, and I think it's a good news story, and hopefully members will agree with that. There's nothing supplementary to add to the report, Chair, so I'll leave it at that for the time being.
Lovely, thank you, Lucy. Right, I'll open it to questions from the committee. If you could raise your hand if you were any questions. I have Councillor Davidson. Anybody else? No? Okay, Councillor Davidson, your question.
Right, thank you very much, Chair. I read the report. It's something that's an office block. First question is, can it be converted if required into living accommodation? Secondly, the parking areas are now reduced, although it does say that there's ample parking space there. I didn't witness that when I couldn't get into the council car park for a council meeting once. I had great difficulty getting a parking space around that area. So could you explain your how this is going to fit in, and also the Carver Street Methodist, St Matthew's Church, I should say. I noticed that you've got a bay for parking there, but will that be adequate for the people that come by car? That's it. Thank you.
Lucy.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'll answer the first one, Chair, and then I'll leave it for Mark Simons to answer those two secondary highways questions, because he's heavily involved in the whole of the Heart of the City scheme, so knows it in great detail. In terms of can it be converted to living accommodation, yes, it can. It's a flexible space on those upper floors. They're planned as open office space, but the designers have assured us that it can be repurposed into residential accommodation, so you could insert walls and so on and repurpose it for residential if that was required in the future. So yes, it would be flexible.
Thank you.
And if I can let Mark answer those other ones. Yeah.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot of work done actually on car parking availability within the city centre for Heart of the City 2. The Heart of the City 1, you may recall, had a multi-storey car park proposed, which would have been accessed from Rockingham Street, but since those thoughts, there's been quite a lot of survey work undertaken in existing multi-storey car parks, and been some quite new multi-storey car parks constructed recently as well. And the research shows that there is a lot of spare capacity within the multi-storey car parks that currently we have within the city centre. I think within this report actually mentioned something in the order of 4,000 parking spaces within a 40-metre walk distance to this particular development site. So there may be occasions where there may be a bit squeezed to try and find parking on street, but we do feel that there's scope within existing multi-stories. There's paying short-term, short-stay pay and display as well, although you quite rightly point out some of that would be reduced and lost as a consequence of this, because some of it needs to be removed for the servicing that occurs from on street. And the new link road between Carver Street and Backfields, that would have a lay-by to assist servicing from on street. And there's been discussions with the church, their requirements for services and such like, which is what that lay-by is intended for. So it's a tight squeeze. It's probably the tightest block of heart of the city. To be fair, it's caused a few headaches in terms of fitting everything in, but we feel we've just about achieved it, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson, okay?
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Okay. Councillor Garbett, I've seen you. I'll bring you in now, Councillor Garbett.
Thank you, Chair. This is planned to be, was it 8 to 9 stories tall, on the basis that this forms a boundary, as it were, or a marker for passing from the conservation area out of there. Sorry, can you hear?
Yeah, Councillor Davidson, I think you need to mute. Thank you. Thank you, okay. Councillor Garbett. Sorry about that.
Thank you. According to the papers we were given, this is an 8 to 9 story building, and it's that high in order to mark the boundary between the conservation area and the rest of the heart of the city. I notice on your map, Lucy, that you had a block G where there is a current surface car park, and that's to be taken away. Obviously, if there's a block G to be built, then that car park won't exist anymore. So in order for me to make some sort of decision about whether that 8 to 9 stories is a good thing or not, I think I might need to know what's going up in block G, how tall it's going to be. So could you give me some idea of that, please?
Chair, I'll just put the share screen back on just so I can scroll to the map. Just bear with me. So on this, Councillor Garbett's referring to this site. It's actually the whole of this site would be known as Site G, but we haven't got the proposals for that. It wouldn't be one singular building. There's quite a lot of work going on at the moment, looking at the finer details of what is likely to be acceptable on that site. But that hasn't evolved into any formal proposal yet, but it would be a number of blocks. Clearly it wouldn't be a single block, but there are different ways that you could configure that. And I think what we're saying is obviously Telephone House is a tall building already. There are other taller buildings as you move across here. So particularly in this lower section, you can expect to see some similar heights on that site as well. It wouldn't be sensitive in that sense. And obviously you've approved a very tall building on this site here. So it's substantially lower than what you've approved in this area here. So there is a transition, and there may be some taller elements on this part, but we think that's all appropriate. You've more got 4 and 5 stories, well 2, 3, 4, 5 stories in this zone. We're jumping up again here, and there may be something of additional height in this area, but really it's on a site-by-site basis. So you know it's difficult to say at this stage exactly what the heights would be, but they would be comparable.
Thank you, Lucy. Okay, Councillor Garbett, okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that answer. Can I ask a different question then?
Yes.
I use the Art House quite a lot, which is to the north of this site. and there are 1 or 2 windows opening out from the art house onto the space being built on. And I'm just a bit concerned that, you know, that the height of that will sort of take light away from the art house. Has that been taken into account? Has been any talking about that?
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you. I mean, obviously there is a road in between the art house and this new proposal, so there is, you know, there is a proper road distance between the two. Undoubtedly, because this building is on the southern side, some light would be taken away from that, but not to the point where we would be recommending refusal. Obviously, this is an urban block, and that happens regularly throughout the city centre. But certainly, you know, in overall terms, it's a positive addition to this site, because what we've got there at the moment is the surface car park that doesn't contribute anything to placemaking whatsoever. And obviously all the people close by have been consulted on the proposals, and they have certainly not objected to the proposals.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And any more questions from any members? Adam, is it a question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
A very general one, but it was just when I was reading through yesterday, and obviously some of the stuff that comes from this is, you know, around car parking and the whole area. I just wonder, obviously the work that will have gone into this will have been going on for quite some time. How and what, if any, attention or are we paying to the fact that COVID seems likely to be changing the balance again of use from public transport to private transport, and how might that relate to some of the questions we've had about car parking and car parks in the area? Sorry if it's a bit vague and a difficult one, but I think it is one that I'd be interested to know what the officers think.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Lucy.
Chair, I think that the survey work, I'll ask Mark to come in, was done pre-COVID, so that survey work was done pre-COVID, and I think it's very difficult to predict exactly what is going to arise. I think what will happen is probably more people will work from home, so perhaps the commuter traffic will be less actually rather than more, but perhaps if Mark would come in on that point, Chair.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I can't really add anything more to what Lucy's said. I mean, it's really tricky to predict what will happen in the future. More home working versus more private car use. We don't know at this stage.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree, and I mean, I understand where Councillor Hurst is coming from, but I mean, it's there which was the question that was asked earlier about what else could it be if it wasn't office block. It could be home accommodation, do you know, on that. But yeah, we're here to consider the planning application in front of us today. So any comments from any members? Yeah, I have Councillor Price, Councillor Rosalind Josephs and Councillor Clarkson at the moment. Okay, I'll take Councillor Price first.
Thank you, Chair. Just how much I welcome this, Chair. It's another piece in the jigsaw of the redevelopment of our city centre, and it's good news really, because it shows that there's still confidence in office blocks in the city centre, and Zoom hasn't taken over everything we're doing, and the developers have clearly quite prepared to put the money where the mouth is and continue the development of our city. So I welcome it very much so, and I look forward to going up. Although I'm losing a little car park, which I don't normally use on Saturday nights, but anyway.
Here we go again about Councillor Price and the nighttime economy. We don't have to worry in Sheffield, he'll be picking it up as soon as he's allowed. Okay, Councillor Rosalind Josephs.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I've got to say, I welcome this building. Unlike Councillor Garber, I haven't got a problem with the height. You know me, the taller the better. I think this is a good link, though, to get that from the area that is part of the conservation into the area that we can go higher, and for any further developments, higher the better, in my opinion. But I fully welcome this and see the confidence in the city. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And I have Councillor Clarkson for a comment. Thank you. I've seen you, Councillor Garber.
Thank you, Chair. I think Lucy was right when she
Sorry, we have frozen.
She said it is a good news story, and it's a part of the city. That's all right. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yeah, you keep freezing, but don't worry, Jack, carry on.
Yeah, it is a good news story, and it's an area of the city what's desperate for redevelopment. I thought the officer's report was a good report. The only thing that what I do get concerned about is the parking. We seem to be losing parking, and don't forget, the officers need to realise electric cars are going to be the future, and we need to cater for them. But yeah, I will be voting for this, Chair. Thank you.
Lovely, and thank you for your comments. Councillor Garbutt, you wish to make a comment?
Yes, I'm heartened by the fact that the office space can be converted should we come out of the COVID situation in a place where more people are working from home. That makes me happy. The answer from the officers about the height, the relative heights, has settled some headaches for me. And looking at some of the outside proposals for the bottom of Carver Street, they look really good. So I shall, on balance, be voting for this.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else wish to make a comment? No, no, that's okay. Okay, so we'll go to the vote. The proposal is to grant conditionally. So I will start with the roll call, and I'll try not to miss anybody out. Okay, Councillor Chris Rosling-Joseph.
For, Chair.
Councillor Alan Law.
For, Chair.
Councillor Andrew Sangar.
For, Chair.
Councillor Diane Hurst. Thank you. Councillor Roger Davidson.
For, Chair.
Councillor Zahira Naz. You were very quiet.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Peter Price.
For, Chair.
Councillor Peter Garbutt.
For, Chair.
Councillor Bob McCann.
For, Chair.
Councillor Tony Dance.
For, Chair.
Councillor Adam Hurst.
For, Chair.
And Councillor Jack Clarkson.
For, Chair.
Okay, I make that a full house. Okay, Abby. Okay, so that proposal is granted. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 7B on the agenda. So we could remove Lucy and bring in Chris, please. Is Chris in? He is.
Yes,
okay. You can hear. Okay, Chris. Right, I'm going to go ahead and begin now. So application 7B, which 7B on the agenda, application number 20-00696/FUL, which is formerly PP 08506326. It's a full planning application. The proposal is alterations to allow use of a medical centre, use class D, as 5 dwellings, use class 3, including demolition of a single-storey side lean-to erection of a single-storey side extension, formation of additional access and provision of roof lights, erection of 2 dwellings, associated access parking and landscaping works. And it's on page 57 of your agenda if you want to scroll to that. The location is the Old Medical Centre, School Lane, Green Hill, Sheffield, S8. Chris, I'll hand over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll share my screen so you can see what I'm referring to. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the site, obviously Edge Red here, lies within the Green Hill Conservation Area in the heart of the village. It was the former school building before being converted some years ago to a medical centre. The conservation area boundary runs broadly in this area, so it's firmly within it. There are no listed buildings on the site or in the immediate vicinity. The uses surrounding the site are entirely residential apart from the church facility here. It's an aerial view which shows that currently you've got the main school building and then essentially car parking around it, which used to serve the medical centre. These are just some general kind of images of the site. So this is the site here beyond this boundary wall. So this is looking from an entrance to neighbouring residential properties. That photograph was taken from here. So we're now on kind of a bit further down into the site, and this is the former schoolyard and that boundary wall that I was referring to there. The main school buildings, this vegetation here is largely self-set, and you can see that the boundary, the school railings are retained within that boundary along there, and the church obviously beyond. A further closer view of the schoolyard. So, Chair, the proposal is for 7 dwellings. Replacing the medical centre has closed and has relocated within the vicinity. The building is currently empty. So the proposal is to convert the existing school building into 5 units, and they are 4 2-bedroom units, 3 within this 1.5-storey element here, 1 in this single-storey element here, and then 1 1-bedroom unit in this unit here, and then to build 2 semi-detached 4-bedroomed dwellings. They would have their own garden. There'd be gardens for these here and here, and the car parking is in a communal form here, with a single point of access into the site, Chair, via an unaltered access which previously served the medical centre and the school before that. The boundary along here, you'll remember from the previous photographs, there was quite a large opening in it. That will be reinstated or filled in with matching stone to fill that boundary. Matching stone in that 2 pedestrian access points will be taken from here to serve the new semi-detached houses, and that stone will in part be used here. That's an image of the 2 new dwellings. So they are a very traditional character, traditional detailing, including stone copings and chimneys, natural stone slate roofs. So it's a design that we're supportive of, Chair. The alterations to the school building itself are extremely limited, other than internal conversion, and this small lean-to extension here is removed to facilitate a better layout for the dwellings. This little block here is retained, as are these other protrusions here. That's the relationship between the proposed semi-detached dwellings and the existing school building. So you can see that in height terms it fits comfortably and fills the gap where the schoolyard was previously. So in terms of car parking, there are 10 parking spaces, which ensures each property has car parking allocated. Access, as I say, is unaltered from here. It's a preferred use in policy terms. It's a housing area. The key issue really or 2 key issues are impact on the conservation area. We feel it's perfectly fine, Chair. It's in a form which reflects the character of the school buildings and the surrounding conservation area, which is very kind of organic in its form, being a form of village. The highways issues, there have been a number of highways issues raised by local people. However, we feel that the site is provided for sufficiently with car parking, and the actual number of movements are likely to be less than they would have been from the previous medical centre use. So we feel the access works in that respect. And also in terms of impact on residential properties, it's very minimal. There are some properties on the opposite side of the street here, but that relationship is very typical within the conservation area and within many streets around the city. And this garden here, which is a proposed garden for this unit, there's a slight element of overlooking here from because this is quite a short rear garden, about 9 meters or so. So there is a slight element of overlooking there, which we're comfortable with on the basis that it only just falls margin very short, 1 meter short of our guidelines. And this is a new person coming in who'll be very aware of the surroundings that they're moving into, Chair. So overall, it's a positive recommendation. And just quickly moving on to the recommendation, I want to draw members' attention to the supplementary report. There was a slight error in the drafting of the report, Chair, that referred to the tilted balance and the need to apply that to this decision, and that's not correct. So we've, for simplicity and for completeness, we've redrafted that section. It's predominantly the same, but it's removed reference to the tilted balance, Chair. The essence of the recommendation, which is to support the scheme, remains the same. I'll stop sharing now.
Thank you for the clarification, Chris, much appreciated. And all members have received the supplementary, that was confirmed earlier. Okay, we have no speakers on the application, so I'm going to go straight ahead to questions to committee. And the first person I see is Councillor Sangal and then Councillor Galbert. Okay, thank you. Councillor Sangal.
Thank you, Chair. Well, shall we start with this change to the recommendation? So we regularly get MPPF 11 quoted at us by officers, and I noticed that the phrase tilted balance is not only in the original summary recommendation, but it's also at the top of page 66, where it sort of talks about, well, it talks a lot about MPPF and how we should look at it in terms of the need for housing. So can you just go through what bits of page 65 and 66 we need to rewrite, as well as the summary recommendation?
Chair, I'll need to refer back to the report, but the report sets out the context for when it's appropriate to consider the tilted balance. And that includes and primarily includes where policies are out of date, and in particular where there is a lack of housing supply for an authority. But as we have the housing supply, that's the key factor here. As we have the housing supply and the policies, the most important policies, aren't out of date, then it's not required to apply it. And instead, the test here, the main test is, as well as considering all of the policies and material considerations, the main test is weighing what we've identified as less than substantial harm to the conservation area against the public benefits of the provision of housing, the reuse of the site, etc. So we didn't want to. We felt that the report itself identified the issue of the tilted balance, but had then erroneously used that in the balance of the recommendation when it shouldn't have done.
Councillor Sangar, if you want to come back on that, or would you like Chris to go back to the presentation for any more clarification?
Well, I'll ask my other two questions. I just think when we have a rewritten summary recommendation, I do think we need to go through the report just to check, because clearly there's some conservation area issues to take it into account. But we're always, from a member point of view, we're always making a balance of judgment based on planning policies. and it's the overall balance that we give to things. So can I just talk about so there's two questions I've got. I'd ask them at the same time, although I know they're two different officers. Well, one is, now that we're going to only one car entrance, can I just check that there is a turning circle if all the car parking spaces were occupied? And my second question, and I'll ask it now, is just in terms of the size of the gardens, in terms of the new new semis, because I noticed there was a comment from local residents that they thought they were quite small, and whether that's been taken into account. And we've already heard the officer's presentation about the possibility of the fact that the separation is not as big as our policies, and how and is there anything else we need to be looking at in terms of that, the fact that it is a smaller separation than we would expect?
Chair, if I answer the last question first, and then if Mark could comment on the layout and the ability for vehicles to turn. The gardens of the two new houses are they vary slightly, 60 and 70 square meters, which of itself exceeds our guideline, which is 50 square meters. So we feel they're comfortably in the range of being acceptable, and particularly when compared with the units immediately to the west. I can share the screen if necessary, but the units to the left have very small gardens, which in part is reflecting the character of the village conservation area. But the simple answer, Chair, to the question is that they exceed our guidelines in terms of space for a dwelling of that kind. So if Mark wouldn't mind answering the question around vehicle turning.
Mark.
Yeah, if all the parking spaces are taken, there's definitely the manoeuvring space for vehicles to leave in a forward gear. The access in is kind of single file. There's quite a large bell mouth into the site, which is shared with the church just to the south. So if somebody's coming out, the logic is that somebody would wait in that bell mouth, which would be free of the main road. So yeah, we're happy with the layout.
Thanks, Chair. I'll come back with comments later.
Okay, I'll pop you down for a comment then. I have Councillor Garbett for a question.
Thank you, Chair. There's 10 parking spaces planned. That doesn't quite meet the minimum requirements, I believe. So is there any chance of making that up by having secure bicycle storage anywhere there? That's my first question.
Does Chris and Mark want to answer? Do you know?
Chair, I'll answer initially, and if Mark wants to.
Please,
I think the first point is that the question was phrased in terms of the 10 spaces don't meet our minimum requirements. They're actually maximum requirements, and that's reflected in national policy too. So yeah, there are 10 spaces, which it's based on 2 each for the 4-bedroom properties, and then the remaining 6 split between the apartments. So we're satisfied that the parking level is appropriate. The layout, I think certainly the houses themselves would tend to provide their own cycle storage, and there isn't currently any proposals for provision within the layout for cycle storage for the flats, the apartments. The layout could possibly accommodate some, but that's something that would have to be subject to a condition added to the recommendation, Chair.
I'll hand over to Mark to.
It's not unusual for, as has been said, for houses to deal with their own parking requirements. There seems to me to be ample room to create some secure parking for the apartments if members feel that way. And as Chris has said, that would need to be an additional condition.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Garbutt.
Yeah, I just feel that, you know, since we are trying to move away from reliance on the car and designing around the car, then we might want to think about providing some bicycle storage. So is it possible to put a condition in that we have some secure bicycle storage included in this, especially for the, you know, the 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, because they're less likely to have cars and more likely to be using public transport and bikes.
Okay, Victoria, could I just ask you to, shall we take members to see if they wish to add a condition now, or shall we wait until we come?
Just initially, there's some just advice in terms of conditions. You've got 6 tests to meet in respect to conditions, and one of them is that it's necessary. So it's got to be the case that members feel that without this condition, members feel that they would have to refuse the permission. So if you feel it's something that it's felt so strongly that we do need it, that is one of the requirements for the condition. If you are minded to still propose it based on that advice, we'll need a proposer and a seconder and then to vote on it.
Okay, well, I think we'll wait until we finish with the questions and come further down onto that. Okay, thank you. Councillor Davison, did you indicate you wish? Sorry, Councillor Garbutt, have you any more further questions on that?
Not on the bicycles, but I do have on.
Thank you.
On the I do have one on the conversion of the old school house, which, by the way, I think is brilliant. But you know, repurposing old buildings is a brilliant thing to do. But it's also an opportunity for retrofitting to make the building environmentally friendly, more environmentally friendly. It's quite difficult on old buildings to do it completely. Is there any provision in the plans for doing this, so that, you know, we could reduce the possible heating bills, etc.?
Thank you, Chris.
Chair, I'll have to check back to the conditions on the report, if you just bear with me. There is a condition requiring 10% provision in line with our policy. I believe it's condition number 3. Yes, so condition number 3 requires that, and will be, and the conversion will be part of the scheme, Chair. It's not just the new build. So the answer to the question is yes, and it's already there.
Thank you, Councillor Garbutt. Okay, Councillor Davidson, you had a question, I understand?
No, excuse me, Chair. I want to make a comment. Sorry.
Oh, a comment, not a question. Okay, I need to go to any more questions from any members? No. Okay. Any comments before we before Councillor Garbutt? You know, I'll come back to you, Councillor Garbutt, about the your proposal. Is there any comments? So Councillor Clarkson and Councillor Garbutt. Okay, Councillor and Councillor Sangal. Anybody else want to make a comment before Councillor Hurst? Yeah, okay, that's lovely. Councillor Clarkson, a comment, please.
Chair, it was nice to hear Chris say that the old school building wouldn't be touched, and only the internal structure. Just an issue aside, I used to go to that school 50 years ago. I feel as though I'm really getting old now. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I did go to that school. So for me, I'm a little bit disappointed about the semi-detached. I think for 4 bedrooms, the gardens should be a little bit smaller, and I'd like to see a detached. But on balance, I'm going to vote for this.
Thank you. And we won't tell anybody you're over 30, don't worry. Okay, Councillor Garbutt, I had you down next for a comment.
Thank you. I think this is a really good plan, because I like the idea of repurposing the old buildings, and I think putting you know, it was already hard standing anyway, so putting 2 new buildings on there is really good. There are one or two things, you know, I've already raised them that I think could make this better. And I think the bicycle thing, because we're going to go for a lot less cars in the future, I think we need to start thinking very, very strongly about providing bicycle storage, and that's why I raise it here. I'm not quite decided yet on whether or not I will vote for or against. There's some very strong plus points here, though.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sangar.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation on this one. I know conservation areas are difficult to build in, but this is an empty building, the school building, and it has got character. It adds to the character of Green Hill Village, and it would be a shame to lose it. And this gives us an opportunity to repurpose this fine old stone building into 5 apartments. So I'm very keen to support it because of that. In terms of the semis, I think the quality of design we're getting is very good, and you know, it clearly was useful going on the site visit just to see the site. But I do think we're getting a good, reasonably good design. There are one or two things that are not quite perfect, but overall, I think this is a good scheme. It will make sure we don't get an eyesore in Green Hill Village. So it's to be supported. Like Councillor Garber, you know, I accept, you know, there are only 10 car parking spaces, and if we can find a way of putting in the condition about cycling, I would be prepared to support that condition as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Hurst. Excuse me, Councillor Davidson and Councillor Adam Hirsch. Can you mute your microphones? It's okay. It's just, yeah. Thank you. Lovely. Councillor Hurst. That's okay.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a really charming reuse of an old building in the heart of this community, and the developers are to be praised for bringing it back into reuse, and the quality of the design of the houses. It's going to look very attractive, much better than a building falling into disuse and being overgrown. I welcome these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more comments? Councillor Davidson, yeah. Unmute yourself now, I'll allow you.
I did ask at the beginning before all the others, but anyway, no. I'm disappointed that people didn't come and view it for themselves. They may have gone in their own time, but I have my doubts. But I think one of the things about that building is, and by the way, I don't remember seeing you there, Jack, because I used to live around the corner, although I didn't go to that school. It's a fine building. They're doing the best. I mean, it's being used for the best purpose, I must say. I think it's wonderful that the conservation is there in that old village, because it has character, that village. And you know, as far as the cars are concerned, it's going to have minimal effect. As pointed out, more cars would have come in and out of a clinic, or you know, than will come in and out of dwellings. But also, the one end of the road is cut off from Green Hill Main Road. There's one outlet to Green Hill Main Road, so there's no flow going from Green Hill Main Road through to Green Hill Avenue, which would have been, you know, perhaps a problem. I don't see any problem there. As far as the overlooking is concerned, from the other house, that is a conversion from a haulage contracting company that used to own that site. The buildings are better on this site than the other one. They're not overlooking the people that are already in position. It's the other way around. But the only way that they could overlook is by sitting in their bedroom and looking into the garden, because the fence is too high for them to see over the wall when they are when they're downstairs. So I'm actually happy with the full.
Thank you, Councillor Davidson. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any more comments? Okay. Right, Councillor Garbutt, did you want to I'll give you the opportunity.
Thank you. So I would want to propose that some secure bicycle storage be included in the plans as part of the condition.
You have to bear in mind what Victoria Clayton said, who's our legal expert on this,
Okay,
that it has to be that the application would be refused. Is that correct, Victoria? Do you know it has to meet the 6 tests?
Yeah, the 6 tests in respect of a condition, and one of them is that the condition is necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms. So yeah, it is something that you need. It's not a wish list, if you like.
Yeah,
it is something that you feel strongly influences the outcome. Thank you.
Okay, right. Councillor Price, was it on this? Yeah, Councillor Price. Before we, go ahead.
Well, Chair, I'm not going to support this amendment, Chair. I don't think it's necessary. I think there's plenty of development where we don't even bother. I mean, I think there's so few traffic. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's enough safer for people's bikes, and I'm insisting we build a special unit.
Okay, so Councillor Garbutt, do you want to propose it, and then we'll see if we can get a seconder, and then we can go to the vote as a committee on it.
Can I just explain why I think it's becoming very necessary?
I think you've actually explained that quite eloquently earlier on, and Victoria's explained why.
In that case, let me put that proposal forward.
Yeah.
That we try and improve this already very good scheme by putting some secure bicycle storage in there and making that a condition, an extra condition. Okay.
Do you have a seconder? Do we have a seconder for that? So that's Councillor Sangar.
Yeah, I'll second it. I mean, we just got to do everything we can. We got this is a scheme which has fewer spaces than the maximum possible. We do want to encourage bike use as much as possible, so I'm supporting this. So I want to second this amendment.
So we need to vote for the condition. Is that correct, Victoria? Or do we need to go to the vote on the original? Because it's just a condition.
Yeah, you need to vote on the condition, and then you need to go to the vote on the application with the new condition if it proceeds.
Right, yeah, okay. I'm just making sure we're doing everything correctly, so bear with me. So we need to vote on the proposal by Councillor Garbutt, which is that we would like a cycle storage. Is that correct?
As a condition.
As a condition, yeah, that's Okay, so I'll start with the roll call on the condition. Okay, Councillor Rosalind Josephs.
Against, Chair.
Councillor Alan Law.
Against.
Councillor Andrew Sangar.
For.
Councillor Diane Hurst.
Against, Chair.
Councillor Davidson.
Abstain.
Councillor Zahira Naz. Sorry, your microphone. Against. Have we recorded that? Is it against? Okay, yeah. Councillor Peter Price.
Against, Chair, not necessary.
Councillor Peter Garbutt.
For, Chair.
Councillor Bob McCann.
Against, Chair.
Councillor Tony Dams.
Against, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Adam Hurst.
Yeah, against.
Councillor Jack Clarkson.
Against, Chair.
Okay, I take that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 9 against, Abby, is that right? 2 for and 1 abstention. So that is lost, adding that as a condition. Okay, so we'll now go to the main vote on the application. The application is for a full planning condition, and it's to grant conditionally. So we'll go on to the main application. Councillor Chris Rosalind Josephs.
For the officer recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Law.
For, Chair.
Councillor Andrew Sangar.
For, Chair.
Councillor Diane Hurst.
For, Chair.
Councillor Roger Davidson.
For, Chair.
Councillor Zahira Naz.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Price.
For, Chair.
Councillor Peter Garbutt.
Abstain, Chair.
Councillor Bob McCann.
For, Chair.
Councillor Tony Dams.
For, Chair.
Councillor Adam Hurst. Oh, you're up. You're
4,
muted.
Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Clarkson.
4.
Okay, I take that as
Chair.
11. Yeah, thank you very much. That is granted. I take that 11 and 1 abstention. Is that correct, Abby? That's fine, yeah. Okay, so that application is granted. We now move on to item 7C. Okay. Could we bring the Officer Dinah Hope in, please? Okay, can I just check with Jay that everyone that's ready to come in is ready? Jay, could you just indicate, please? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay, that's lovely. Okay, so item 7D is application number 20/01480/OUT. It's an outward planning application. The proposal is a demolition of dwelling and provision of associated access on outline planning application, appearance, landscaping and scale matters reserved. The location is 218 Wortley Road, High Green, S35 4LY. It starts on page 81 of your agenda, and the officer presenting is Dinah Hope. Dinah, if you could present, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to share the screen.
Lovely.
Okay. Just bear with me. Okay, so the application site is located at the junction of Wortley Road and Farlow Croft in High Green. This is Wortley Road, east-west, and Farlow Croft is a cul-de-sac that runs to the north. This is a view along Farlow Croft taken from the junction with Wortley Road, and you can see the site on the right here behind this hedge and trees. This is a view looking down the driveway of the application site, standing just in front of the bungalow, looking back towards Wortley Road, which runs along here. This is a view of the eastern end of the site from Wortley Road. So the site sort of finishes around the sort of the apex of the hill here, just beyond. This is a pedestrian entrance into the site at the eastern end from Wortley Road. This is a view taken along Wortley Road, but from the junction with Farlow Croft. This is the site here behind this established sort of boundary running along Wortley Road and Farlow Croft. This is a view looking west along Wortley Road with a site on the right. This is a view of the existing site access. It's taken from Wortley Road. And this is a view looking south along along Farlow Croft with the site in the background here. This is an existing site plan. It shows the location of the existing bungalow. That's here. The trees that you could see along the boundaries and a few in the centre of the site. And you can see this site section, which illustrates the gradient of the site. It falls quite steeply from east to west. This is the proposed site plan. It shows you the slightly relocated access from Wortley Road. The existing access, if I just go back a step, is here. And the proposed access moves slightly to the east and is widened to provide the appropriate intervisibility. And you can see the layout of the 5 dwelling houses, the 5 plots with their drives and gardens. And you can also see the retained trees around the perimeter of the site and hedges. Now, as scale and appearance are reserved matters, this drawing is for illustrative purposes only, but it indicates how split level accommodation could make use of the change in level across the site. So, for example, if we look at plot 2 here, This indicates that you would enter the site at ground level, you would go down to some accommodation at the rear of the site, and then you'd have accommodation in the roof. But I'll just go back to the site plan and just remind members that this is an outline application with only matters of layout and access under consideration. The proposed layout is influenced by the change in level across the site, as well as the desire to retain the existing boundary walls and the mature planting to the perimeter, which contribute to the character of the area. And at 18 dwellings per hectare, the development is below the density recommended in the core strategy policy CS26, but it's considered to be acceptable because it's in keeping with the character of that of the area. And that's, thank you, Chair. There's no supplementary information on this.
Lovely. We have one speaker on this application, and they're speaking against the application. Jay, if you could bring Jill Ellis in, please, to the meeting. Thank you. Welcome, Jill. You need to unmute yourself. We can see you.
Unmute.
Lovely, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Right then, just
sorry.
1 second. Okay. You have,
okay.
Oh no, you're welcome. Don't worry about it all. It's a bit of a drizzly afternoon, so it's nice to be inside. Right,
Hey,
you
sunny.
have you have 5 minutes, Jill. Anyway, okay. That's
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
So thank you for giving me the opportunity to make representation. I live on Farlow Croft. We're a small community of 28 houses. We support and care for each other, and this has been critical in recent times. I've been a resident here for 35 years. One of the reasons we chose the location was the size of the development with its own planned front gardens, created as a result of a building line demanded by the now deceased owners of the bungalow on this proposed development plot and the relatives of the current applicant. They required no building in front of the property. The importance of this building line was acknowledged by planning officers in the 2012 refusal of a previous application that I refer to below. He stated in the report, and this is a quote, "The citing of the proposal in terms of respecting the grain and character of the surrounding area gives rise to concern. The properties on the east side of Farlow Croft adhere to a strict building line, which is set in line with the west elevation of 218 Wortley Road. It is considered that the development of 3 dwellings forward of the established building line will result in the formation of a highly visible and prominent development that will severely detract from the open character of the area and be detrimental to the appearance of the street scene." So in 2012, a planning application for 3 houses on this site was refused, yet we now have a recommendation for 5 4-bedroomed houses on the site. And here is the exact wording of the relevant part of the refusal. The local planning authority considered that the proposal would break an established building line. As such, the development would form a prominent and obtrusive feature which would detract from the open character of the area, contrary to policy H14, the UDP, and policy CS74 of Sheffield's core strategy. Okay, aware that this was 18 years ago and things change, I've meticulously checked the policies on the Sheffield website that were referred to in this refusal to ensure that they're still in place. Namely the UDP CS74 and SDF, the Sheffield Framework Core Strategy. Both policies remain current, and I quote, "Some UD policies were superseded by core strategy policies, but are retained until we have a Sheffield plan that is adopted. More specifically, I've checked the Council's list of superseded policies, and the UDP policy CS74, referred to in the refusal, is not listed. So I'm therefore somewhat perplexed at the latest officer recommendations to support the application and the fact that the refused application wasn't referred to in the officer report, outlining why there were such different conclusions. I've also used the current documents on the Council's website, Schedule of Consistency of Local Planning with National Planning Framework, to reference this refusal and the latest officer report. The document on the core strategy for Sheffield specifically refers to mature gardens as one of the features that define an area's character, and that these need to be safeguarded from higher density development, and there needs to be a limit on such development. It then references houses southwest of the city. Does this lead on to the conclusion that residents of the north are less important than those in the south? And does building 5 houses on a mature garden site sit well with Sheffield's core strategy? It's my observation that this mature garden is possibly the only one remaining on Workley Road due to many recent developments in the village. The use of previously developed land in accordance with HD 10 of the UDP promotes the use of such land, but specifically excludes the garden curtilage. Annex 2 of the National Policy Framework. The recent officer report refers to core strategy policy CS26 and the density of housing that is allowed, but then fails to quote that part of the policy then says it's not acceptable if they're out of character with the rest of the area. So please look at the site plan. It does illustrate that the creation of 5 dwellings in this place is out of character. Neighbouring properties in Workley Road are in long plots, and all the houses in Farlow Croft sit on a long linear plot along that building line that was set. The majority having open plan gardens at frontage on the road. 5 houses are not in character. The latest report refers to mature trees helping the site stay in character and offering shielding. I'm not convinced that the planning permission as proposed provides any effective protection from these trees.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, in conclusion, I respectfully request the committee use the information I've provided to refuse this application, bearing in mind particularly the following quotes, still valid from 2012. Overall, the siting of the proposed dwellings would result in the formation of a proposal that would breach an established building line. The development would form a prominent and obtrusive development and would detract from the open character of the area, contrary to the policy in the UDP, and would not respect the grain and character of the surrounding area. The development of this piece of land would significantly detract from the openness of the street scene, which would be detrimental to the visual amenity of the area. I timed it to exactly
nearly
5
on time
minutes.
as well. Well done, Jill. Thank you.
Really
Yeah.
stuttered.
Thank you very much. Okay, Jay, if we could remove Jill from the meeting, and she can still hear, don't worry.
Very much.
You're welcome. Yeah. Thank you. Dinah, would you like to respond, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I think while I'm doing so, I will share the screen again, if that's
absolutely
helpful. It might be worth just, oh, sorry. There was a refusal for an application on this site. It was a 2011 application determined just at the beginning of 2012. So that's pre-NPPF. And the application involved just this parcel of land here. It wasn't for the whole site. It involved 3 houses at the very western end of the site, all with access from Farlow Croft. And at the time it was refused, as I said, pre-NPPF, for a number of reasons. One of them was breaking the established building line, but the application also involved removing all the trees and the the existing trees and boundary treatment from the Farlow Croft frontage and taking 3 driveways from there. So it would have had a very different impact on the character of the area and the street scene. So if I just, so yes, and I think we've got to bear in mind that in this current application, I'm just going to go to the aerial shot here. You can see that there's a very varied character to the area. You can see over to the east, we have you know, detached and semi-detached properties in a variety of plot sizes, including very many smaller plot sizes. This application itself, as I said, if I go back to the character, is a relatively low density development. The site is currently occupied by a single bungalow. It doesn't make very efficient use of the land. The NPPF places much greater emphasis on the provision of housing and making efficient use of land. And in this case, it's felt that taking access from Wortley Road and protecting and retaining most of the existing perimeter planting and boundary treatments and stone walls will very much protect the character of the area, and that the site won't really, because of that sort of dense screening, isn't really read in connection with the building line on Farlow Croft. It probably relates much more closely to Wortley Road, but even from Wortley Road, it will be screened in some views. So we're satisfied that the differences between now and the 2011 application are the greater emphasis on provision of housing in the NPPF and the much larger plot size, on the application site size, and the low density of the development, which all make it acceptable in this instance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. I will now open this up to questions from members. I've got Councillor Diane Hurst down as a question first. Councillor Sangar, Andrew, then Roger, then Adam. Anybody else? Okay, that's fine. Okay, Councillor Diane Hurst.
Thank you, Chair. It's referring back to what the speaker said about the building line and the fact that Farlow Court was constructed along the building line. And you can see that if you look at the aerial photograph of the site, there is very much a line. If that's relevant for the buildings on Farlow Court, doesn't equally follow that it's relevant for the redevelopment of the site of the bungalow?
I mean, I think I've already tried to explain. It's a very large site. If we kept to the building line of the properties on Farlow Croft, we wouldn't be able to build forward of the existing bungalow. And I think the views on and also the site is fronts Wortley Road rather than Farlow Croft. The properties themselves can't front Worlow Road because of the change in level, and this is the most sort of efficient and effective way of using the site, because of the change in level with a single access. But I think it's a corner plot. It's heavily screened by mature planting, which you could see from a lot of the photographs we've given. So you don't read it in the context of the building line on Farlow Croft. And as I said, if we were to retain that building line, we wouldn't be able to use the site for more than a single house. So it doesn't really align with the principles of the NPPF. And the site, the area more generally is mixed in character. You don't read the building line of Farlow Croft when you're on Wortley Road. You can't see it because of the mature planting. And Farlow Croft, as the speaker said, is a cul-de-sac of 28 houses. So the contribution that building line makes to the character of the area, I think, is limited. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Diane, any supplementary on that?
I'm slightly confused, Chair. The building line was important to influence the building of 28 houses, but now isn't. Could you explain the thinking behind why that building line initially was considered to be important when Farlow Court was developed? It might help me understand.
Yeah, I think the speaker alluded to that. I think the building line was established and there was a covenant by the then owner, or presumably occupier of the bungalow, a private covenant. They must have owned the land, to set the building line back. So the building line that was created at that time appears to be as a result of a private arrangement between landowners, rather than necessarily a planning consideration. The 2011 application made reference to that building line, but as I say, it was a very different scheme that was being proposed. It was a scheme on a much smaller site that fronted Farlow Croft with accesses from it, and the houses at that time were set much closer to Farlowcroft with drives onto it, and the trees weren't retained. This is a very different application which we're considering on its own merits, and we don't feel now that in taking access from Wortley Road, the scheme presents to Wortley Road much more than it does to Farlowcroft, and the mature trees that exist now on the site will be retained, so you won't read the scheme in association with the strong building line on Farlowcroft. It's a very different proposal before you today, and I think the historic building line isn't as relevant perhaps as it was then.
Councillor Hurst. Okay. Okay. Councillor Sangar, your question.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm back to the issue of why on page 91 we're talking about tilted balance, and why we're talking about local planning authority not being able to demonstrate a 5-year supply of deliverable housing sites. Because I thought at the moment, because of the actions of this committee over the last year and a half, we've got a 5-year supply of deliverable housing sites. So why do we need to talk about that in relation to this application?
Dinah.
Chair, we're not really. I mean, I think on page 91, that's kind of the policy preamble and setting the scene. But I think if you then go to the summary, it states that because we do have a 5-year supply, the tilted balance isn't in play this time.
Councillor
Okay.
Sangar?
Okay. So it's really about CS24 then, isn't it? It's about when do we build on green sites and
Yes, that's part of the balance in the planning balance in this case. So the eastern half of the site we would class as brownfield, that already has a building on it. The western site is greenfield. CS24 allows for a number of small sites, greenfield sites, to be developed up to a 12% limit, up to taking us to between now and 2026, and we're currently at 5%. So we have the policy capacity, as it were, to build on small greenfield sites in urban areas.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Roger Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. My question's been answered.
Quite brevity, appreciated. Councillor Adam Hurst.
Yeah, actually, it was really, when I've been reading through the papers on it, and obviously I know the area quite well with it being in my ward. I was just wanting a little bit more information, because Wortley Road itself is quite narrow. I think it's sometimes used as a rat run, and if you go just like half a mile up Wortley Road from Farlowcroft, there are major traffic issues up there. So and I seem to remember that in the objections, not necessarily from Jill, but in some of the objections and issues that were included in the report, there was I think some comments about lack of consultation with the developer, with the people who are already living there, but I think specifically some worries about disruption during construction, and also another 5 houses, detached houses, is going to be at least another 5 to 10 vehicles in the area. So it's just wanting to check what the planning officer's views were on those, and whether they were satisfied that we have actually dealt with them in an appropriate way. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hurst. Dinah.
I might pass over to Mark on this one, please, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's going from a bungalow to 5 detached houses, but the generation is going to be really low compared to the existing background traffic that uses Wortley Road. As you pointed out, it does carry a peak flow cross valley movements almost. So the flows will be light. We have, I think it could be probably going back to 7 or 8 years ago now, the whole length of Wortley Road was considered for a scheme of speed reductions, plateaus, etc. So I think we've done as much as we can almost on Wortley Road. It's probably a bit narrow as you go further away from the site, away from the A61. So I think we're quite comfortable as well when the Reserve Matters application comes in. We'll ensure that there's sufficient parking within the site so that we don't get any displacement parking in the road, further reducing the width of the road or anything like that. So yeah, we feel we've done as much as we can, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more questions, Councillor Hurst?
No, that's fine. Thanks very much.
Lovely. Do we have any more questions from members? No. Do we have any comments from members? I have down for comments at the moment was Chris, Rosalind Joseph and Peter Price. Okay, Chris, Rosalind Joseph and Councillor Sango. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I've got to say, I've struggled with this one reading the report because I remember some of the history of turning it down last time. I felt then, and I feel now, this is garden grabbing at its worst. To get somebody a bit of a pension or whatever. I mean, I might be out of step there, but it is building where we've refused in the past, and I'm struggling to find a reason to actually not vote for this. At the moment, I can't. I'm rereading the report again, but I really have to say I have grave concerns over this development. I think it is an overdevelopment, but at the moment, I'm very unhappy with this particular application, when in the past we've turned down those 3 houses, and now somebody's wanting to knock a bungalow down, build on the rest of the garden and put 5 houses in. I'm very concerned about it, Chair.
I think it's more of like a question really, Councillor Rosalind Joseph, but yeah, I'll take you know, we've already responded. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Peter Price, comment.
Thanks, Chair. I feel opposite to Chris. I think I can't see any single planning grounds at all for refusing this. This is a very large site. When you say it's a garden, it's some garden now. And I remember the last one, but remember last application had 3 exits from 3 different houses onto the road. They were right up, so that's why it's ruled out, and the bungalows still remain behind. So that I think this is a very different concept. There is one entrance to the site which comes off Wortley Road to feed those houses, and the site is well protected by some very mature trees all round. I cycled past it the other week, so I know it very well. And I think it's a great site for five properties, Chair. I just can't see any planning grounds anyway that we could possibly turn this down, sir. So I'm going to support the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Sangal.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation. I mean, it was useful going on the site visit. I mean, it is a very large site, and certainly when you compare it with other sites where we have proposals to build more properties. So I mean, I think the site visit was useful. I'm always struggling a little bit when it's outlined, because it would be useful to have the discussion about the detail and the height and those sort of things, but clearly that part of Wortley Road and the roads next to it, they're quite mixed in character. But it's certainly not overdevelopment, building 5. So for me, the issue is really about green fields and garden grabbing. And I just think where the access is a single access from Wortley Road. That to me feels reasonable. And I think we should support this application, and I will be voting for the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you. I had Councillor Diane Hurst next.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm struggling with this application. I would very much like to find a planning reason to turn it down, because despite officers saying that it doesn't have a relationship with the properties on Farlow Court, the properties still, some of the properties still follow that existing building line, and it will, that houses don't overlook Wortley Road, they look over each other on the outline plans, and they still have more of a relationship with Farlow Court than they do with Wortley Road. I know that's not a reason for turning it down on planning terms, but I'm struggling. I'm struggling to support this.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Councillor Hurst. Councillor Adam Hurst.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I have some reservations. I think first and foremost, without proper planning reasons to refuse, then I think we have to support. I do have some mixed feelings, more based, obviously, I only came in as a sub late on to this meeting, so I didn't get a chance to go on the site visit, but I do know the area quite well. So I'm quite torn because actually I've looked at the size of the garden, I've looked at 5 houses, and I think actually, you know, it's not such a bad idea. And I also accept what I think Mark said, which is while more cars using Wortley Road, which is already busy, isn't going to make that much of a difference. I think where I am rather disappointed, and I don't think it's with any current officers, is when we've done things and we've done it on the basis that there've been, say, private agreements, I do have a lot of sympathy with people who maybe lived on Farlow Croft for quite some time, who probably in good faith believed that they were living somewhere where there were things wouldn't happen. But that didn't, you know, that appeared from what Jill was saying, more of a private thing between the people who owned it at the time. So, as I say, I will probably be voting for the officer's recommendation, but I do have some regret because I do think when there is such a change, I'm just disappointed that there doesn't seem to be in the consultation and involvement of the local people with the person who's making the application, which is where I fully take on Chris Gosling Joseph's sentiments, but I think rationally I can't see any reason not to approve it.
Thank you, Councillor Hurst. Councillor Law.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I'll be brief. I'm on similar lines. I mean, I'm struggling with one or two things, but we've got to have good planning reasons for turning it down. I just can't see one. So I should be supporting the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Law. Any more comments? No? Okay. So we go to the vote. This is an outlying planning application, and to grant conditionally, I will start the roll call. Okay, to go with the officer recommendation. Councillor Rosling Josephs.
For the recommendation, reluctantly, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Law.
For, Chair.
Councillor Sangar.
For, Chair.
Councillor Hurst.
Reluctantly for, Chair.
Councillor Roger Davidson.
For, Chair.
Councillor Zahira Naz.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Price.
For, Chair.
Councillor Peter Garbett.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bob McCann.
Reluctantly for, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Dams.
For, Chair.
Councillor Adam Hurst.
For, Chair. I wouldn't say reluctantly, but with reservations.
Okay. Councillor Clarkson.
For, Chair.
Thank you. I make that 12 votes, so that is granted. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 8 of the agenda, which is record of planning appeals and submissions and decisions. Who's presenting this in the absence of Michael? Could somebody, Abby, could you? Okay.
Was Anna going to present it?
I don't think there was anything to report on this one, Chair.
No, I just read it.
They're just for noting.
Just noting. That's okay. I need an officer to do that. That's all. That's fine. Lovely. Okay. So item 9 is dated the next meeting, which is Tuesday, the 27th of October at 2 o'clock. It might be Halloween, but I don't want you in fancy dress. Okay, committee. Okay, then. So take care. Look after yourselves, and see you again soon. Thank you very much, and thank you to members of the public and to the officers for the hard work. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Jane.
Thank you, Chair.
Are you implying we're scary enough without being in costume, Jane?
Well, I certainly am. Without